Professor Helen Kruuse of Rhodes University says she has watched the Judicial Service Commission proceedings for selecting a new Chief Justice with great concern. She says she is particularly concerned about the sexist nature of questions posed to President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Mandisa Maya, as well as unsubstantiated sexual harassment questions posed to Gauteng Judge President Dunstan and Mlambo. Professor Helen joins us now. Thank you so much for your time, Professor. We do appreciate it. You've written to the Judicial Service Commission asking them for a redo, especially of the interview done with Dunstan and Mlambo. Can you tell us why?
Well, I want to preface my comments, and thanks for inviting me. I want to preface my comments by saying that I never intended for this letter to be read out during the proceedings of the JSC. It appears that it was inadvertently read out at the end of the JSC under any other business when the Deputy Judge President as chair was not aware that the matter was still being televised, as I understand it. So I want to be on record as saying I was frustrated and disappointed when I'm a member of the legal profession, a profession that I hold dear, and I wanted to address the JSC directly, hence a letter to the Secretary to be placed before the chair of the committee to consider a member of the legal profession's concerns. So certainly it wasn't meant to be televised, it was meant for their deliberations. But having said that, I stand by the comments that I did make because I do believe that the candidates were not treated fairly across the board.
Certainly. Professor Helen, I just want to provide some clarity because I think it was the intention of the chair of the JSC to not read this out in public, but they had not seen that the media was still in the room and that the live feed was still being broadcast. So I think that should just be made clear. And of course, afterwards, they tried to explain that this is already out in the public, so they might as well just carry on. But they did say they are going to deliberate this letter in their deliberations that's currently underway as we speak. But I want us to go into especially the unsubstantiated sexual harassment questions posed to Judge President Dunstan and Mlambo. This is exactly what you say in your letter. And this was going on for almost the whole day. Throughout the interview process, question after question was being posed to Judge President Mlambo about these sexual harassment rumors, is what they call them. And only way after in the day, I think it was in the second tea break after lunch, the chairperson decided to expunge,
after lunch.
Yes, expunge the questions and answers related to sexual harassment. But the damage is done, isn't it?
Well, that's the point I made in the letter, is that while the PETSE Deputy Chief Justice and Judge President, and chair of the committee, he said explicitly after lunch, and some of the commissioners were very clear that they agreed with him. The damage had been done. The water was already under the bridge. And it is, to me, I was astounded at the lack of due process, the very basis of our constitutional democracy, precepts of hear the other side, give notice. Certainly, if sexual allegations are out there, they have to be dealt with. But in all the time available for people to make written objections to the JSC, not one objection was made on the sexual allegations, these rumors. And it's incredibly unfair to the candidate to hear them in the interview and try to respond to what are also nameless. No evidence, nothing was there for the Judge President Mlambo to respond to.
I think many were actually quite shocked at these rumors, and also I think the Judge President was taken aback. I want us to quickly actually listen to the response of Judge President Mlambo with regards to these sexual harassment rumours?
There is no substance to that rumour. It's a rumour, and I think it's an insidious, poisonous rumour. There's actually no substance to it. When I heard about it, I was actually shocked, right? And I was actually hoping that someone would come up and say, I'm one of those who've been sexually harassed by Judge President Mlambo. So it's unfortunate that people are using people's names willy-nilly in spreading rumors of this nature. There's completely no substance to that rumor.
And you know, Prof, he actually says this is all just to poison my interview. And it's almost as though every single candidate had been thrown a controversial question or a question to almost put them on the spot. But what do you think this has done in terms of his perception from the public? Because everybody is now talking about these sexual harassment rumors. Everybody is saying, well, even though there are rumors, there's been rumors about other people. But we're talking about a judge president here. And we're talking about someone that has years of experience, that turned the legal aid around, that is the judge president of one of the biggest courts in this country, the biggest division in this country. And now it's almost as though people have almost forgotten about his actual capabilities and skills to possibly be the next Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court.
Well, I think that the point is that the JSC has changed the public conversation to this, when what it should be about is what aspects, what attributes of a Chief Justice do we want in terms of an intellectual leader? There is a the superficial questioning, not only of Mlambo, but of President Maya. I found it basically offensive, the way in which gender permeated her interview, to the extent that really we don't know anything about her jurisprudence from that interview. And she's got so much to say and so much to tell us. We need an intellectual leader. The Chief Justice is about being someone who leads with a legal philosophy, forms with, transformative constitutionalism, etc. We didn't get to hear any of that. And that's what is so disappointing about this whole process.
I want to read the parts of your letter where you say, I'm particularly concerned with the sexist nature of questions posed to President Maya and the and then you speak about the sexual harassment questions about Judge President Mlambo. But I want us to go into the questions that were posed to Judge President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Mandisa Maya. It's almost as though, because she's a female, she must be asked, well, is South Africa ready for a female Chief Justice? But you had no man being asked, is South Africa ready for another male Chief Justice? And I think this is of great concern because, as you rightfully say here, it had sexist nature of questions, and it's almost as though she was treated differently, almost with kid gloves. And as you rightfully say, we didn't really get to understand the kind of work and the kind of skills and capabilities that we know she possesses, but that was almost forgotten in the interview and in the interview process. Absolutely.
I found the declaration by one of the commissioners about spending a night together highly offensive, and ironic that we're trying to get away from sort of patriarchal thinking and sexist remarks, and this is how he starts his questioning. And there certainly in the course of the interview there was a wonderful question about customary law and how she saw customary law contributing or not to the position of vulnerable women, but she didn't really have time to get into that. What academics, what practitioners, what judges, the legal profession and the public wants to know, what is their legal philosophy? where are they coming from? What are their priorities in terms of their jurisprudence? And we didn't get to hear any of that. And it's just so frustrating and disappointing. The letter wasn't meant to be grandstanding or anything. It's just my intense frustration at the lack of depth in these interviews.
And you know, Prof, what's interesting, I want us to actually listen to a response from Justice Mandisa Maya. But before we listen to that, what was interesting was that it was told in the JSC that she had actually been one of the judges to write a judgment in Xhosa, and everyone was saying how amazing that is, because she's trying to preserve language, she's trying to preserve culture, she's trying to make judgments available to all, because some people might not be able to understand the jargon in English, and if they are able to understand it in their language, why should a judgment not be written in their language? But let's listen to her response with regards to whether or not South Africa is ready for a woman Chief Justice.
Is South Africa ready for the appointment of a woman Chief Justice? I don't know if your answer is South Africa has always been ready. Perhaps there are those who are vested with the powers may not have been ready.
You know, well, thank you so much for asking that question, JP. Look, I fully appreciate the sentiment behind it. I respect it. But I don't think it's a proper question to ask, because it implies all sorts of negative things. But short answer is, South Africa has always been ready to have a female Chief Justice. At inception, as you point out, we had strong, capable women. In the Constitutional Court, we had Justice Mokgoro, we had Justice O'Regan, and we know them, what they're capable of. And in other courts as well. So there's never been a shortage of women who could take up leadership in any of the ranks of this institution of ours. Yes. And I'll tell you this, that question actually annoys a lot of women. And I've had people ask, was it ever asked if South Africa is ready for a black Chief Justice, and if not, why? Why are we asking about women as if we are this homogeneous, this special group that needs to be done a favor? Just you keep checking if they are ready, and then at some stage you think, oh, maybe now. No, that's not who women are. We're as capable as men.
I think we had to all hold back, Prof, in that room, because we just felt as though Justice Mandisa Maya had been speaking for all women to say, why should we be treated so delicately and differently just because we are females and we are different gender. I just want us to go into a part of your letter, and I know you keep repeating the fact that you didn't mean any harm in writing this letter, and I don't think it was taken in any wrong way. I think many South Africans felt as though the line of questioning needs definitely to be re-looked at, and it speaks back to when those interviews had to be redone last year for the two positions on the bench of the Constitutional Court because of the manner and conduct in which these interviews were done. You say here, I believe that should the current proceedings be allowed to continue, the Commission's work could be set aside by a court on application by concerned parties. And what's interesting here is you had one of the Commissioner's senior counsel, Dali Mpofu, saying that we're always going to be criticized, and we cannot always react every time we are criticized. But I think everybody is concerned about the line of questioning that's taking place in these interviews and whether or not the right questions are being asked. Also, a huge concern about political questions being brought up, where a lot of the time, I mean, what happened with Zondo was quite shocking yesterday, but, you know, a lot of the time people are saying, let's try and understand what this judge has done and what this judge can do should they become Chief Justice. Do you think that there could be a court application to set aside these interviews, especially with Judge President Dunstan and Mlambo?
Well, I think the the answer to that lies in precedent and looking at what happened previously when there were interviews for constitutional court judges. And there I'm referring to the Kasich litigation, and there was an agreement to redo those interviews. And I think this kind of probes an issue that a colleague of mine at UCT has been considering, which is the nature of the representation by the politicians, the judges and teachers of law and advocates and attorneys in the JSC, because the question to be asked really is, and I think there's an easy answer, but the question that my colleague asks, Professor Corder, he asks is, are they delegates in this commission or are they representatives? Because it does appear at times, not always, it does appear that they are asking on behalf of their constituency and their interests rather than the broader question and on a holistic context of what is needed in a Chief Justice or in a judge for that instance.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. I do know that they're in deliberations at the moment, and there's a press briefing that is expected for them to announce what came out of the deliberations and whether or not they are going to come out with a specific preferred candidate. But thank you so much for your insights. That was Professor Helen Kruuse of Rhodes University writing that letter to the JSC around the conduct and line of questioning with regards to some of the candidates.